Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Christ consciousness. Well, here's another book review of topics that tend to cross into each other. And of course, with my investigations into satanic cults and those people involved with this, which leads to corruption on all levels. You know, a lot of people don't consider themselves Satanists, and a lot of them that do are just kind of misinformed freak types that think they're special. And really not into anything overly negative. A lot of them think that this is the higher path because of the great corruption from all of the major religions and institutions. And to a certain extent, well, it's hard to argue that point of it. But I always find it strange that if you have problems in one area, in a particular institution that's been corrupted, that you just want to throw it into the dirt and join the opposition. I always find that to be kind of weird. Clean house, get rid of the scum, restore institutions to what they're supposed to be and do the jobs they should be doing. But that never seems to work. So people want to, and I don't know how you go around life calling yourself a Satanist. I don't know how you possibly get in any way it can get around in life. I don't know what these people do to make a living or anything else. Just like people who are tattooed from their feet to their to the top of their head. How do you get jobs? But of course, it's fashionable now. But who accepts all that? So I've always wondered about that kind of stuff. But so the whole idea is the reality of this all mixes together. Someone who I've been studying here and probably write a book on in the future, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino of the Temple of Set, of course, was accused of being involved in these international pedophile rings. And of course, was attacked and accused of and charged with, which were dropped, with child molestation of one child at the Presidio military base. So it kind of all mixes together if people are wondering why I'm covering this. I'm trying to move away from all this stuff to a great degree, but I do find it kind of interesting. And I think it's these are basically gnosis understandings of the world. You have to know these things, which appear to be very factual, and one of them covering some ferocious things that are going on. And people like to pigeonhole the world, when the world is all the same people are running everything. And what's interesting with the Franklin scandal is that it covers a pedophile ring, which was based in, of all places, Omaha, Nebraska, in the heartland of America. And a lot has been traced there, particularly to the Franklin Federal Credit Union, which failed in the Midwest. And this is a book that exposes corporate corruption, government covers up. This is an account of a nationwide child trafficking and pedophilia ring in the United States. Tells a horrible tale of how this corruption goes into the very highest places of our society, our movers and shakers, our law enforcement, our military. So it came out with the investigation of the Federal Credit Union. And but it brought all these other people in, including the CIA, brought in allegations against Boys Town, the famous place where there was a movie made about that, which apparently is a horrible, horrible place that is involved with trafficking children. And it has it's documented pretty well, goes into a lot of witnesses, etc. This is considered to be true. Now, what we have to understand is that all these books are very good to open your eyes. This is the real world, whether you like it or not. And most people live in their little middle class or whatever society status you're at. And you avoid all this stuff unless you run into it for one reason or another. I was dragged into a lot of this from bad family situations, mostly from corrupt court systems that changed my thinking away from what was a conservative, rah, wave the flag person into basically a complete anarchist. So the whole idea is that, and moving through different things, seeking personal empowerments. And of course, if I would have got stuck into traditional ways of being educated and going to certain schools and had a success in those areas, I probably would have fell in with the rest of the corrupt people. So, you have your destinies, you have the things that you are involved in, and your path, particularly it depends on who you are. I don't think everybody has a destiny, but I think a lot of people do, and you run away from it or don't face it, etc. Because a lot of people just aren't with it. They don't really have a level of consciousness worth anything. So you have to go through a lot of things. You have to evolve to have this. So many things happen to me, which I feel is destiny of being on a particular path for whatever that bigger reason may be. And of course, if you get involved in the system, you become a system slave. They pay you. You eat because of them. You have anything because of them. So you start agreeing with them. And then, of course, you fight for the system that is destroying the world. Now, I was never allowed in these areas and had to make my own way in life and so forth. And being wired different, being a dyslexic who had to think for himself because regular society things didn't work for me, I think was a great opportunity to really take something that's a, quote, disability, but really disconnected me from the common nonsense of society. And I look at everything differently. So here we go again. How are we to believe that? Never believe anything 100%. Well, I'm pretty much 99% factual, and everything I state, it can be proven by third parties. I'm sure there's areas that I have, there's always been the slip of the tongue, the misstatement here or there. Those are just common. A lot is going on. There's huge amounts of information I'm going through. So you have to be careful of those because it can be discrediting because people think, oh, well, it was 1952, 1953. So I try not to get caught in those things. A lot of that doesn't really matter. The exact date of things. I try and give people the bigger picture. So you can't trust anybody. And I find that a lot of people talk about a subject matter and, they get like 80, 90% of it right. But 10% of it is their personal misinformation, their personal twisting of the facts, their personal taking information from someone else who, again, was probably 80, 90% right. But that 10% can be very, very twisting to the ultimate reality. So you have to be very careful. I run into this with everybody. They talk and talk. Gee, yeah, they seem to be understanding it. And then they say, yeah, but the Martian who talked with me, what do you mean the Martian who talked with him? Or Jesus told me. You get all these kind of things that come out and you say, oh my God, what is warping this guy? What is the filter they're taking in here? And it's very disruptive to the ultimate understanding here because then they start twisting what is good information into bad information and somebody else picks it up and then passes it on. I've talked about this before. You've got to understand this. If you're trying to figure out what the truth is, and this is important in your entire life for your basic survival and empowerment, you have to understand all that. So this is a fascinating book that really gets into so many things, but there's also, I'm sure, lots and lots of errors. I'm not going to go through all of that, but those wanting to have a legitimate book on understanding this really serious problem of international pedophilia, which seems to be involving the highest ranks of government, military, law enforcement, etc., should read a book like this to understand how deep the hole goes, how terrible and how corrupt everything is, and how so many of these child welfare organizations seem to be linked to pedophilia organizations. What better place? So I had this happen in my life with some person who claimed to be a person who was hunting down children. He turned out to be a pedophilia. So this is so you put yourself where the available victims can be. And what is better than places that take care of children? And in this society, and particularly the United States, we don't really care about children at all. We say it, but we don't have medical care for them. We don't have proper schools. We don't take care of anybody. It's all mouth. And religions that say, well, you shouldn't have an abortion are not putting up schools or taking care of pregnant women. They just don't want. And they don't want to pay for it. And I think anybody who's against abortion should be taxed 20% more so they can pay for all the facilities we need to take care of these extra people and the children in general. They don't really care about children. It's all about the buckaroos, and they want to live in some falsehood reality from really what's a trumped-up garbage text, as all these religious books are. They're just fantasy worlds copied one after the other. It's unbelievable of the kind of nonsense that are in these books that have done really nothing but pervert people. Certainly very little good has come out of any of these things. So this is the case, and there are these organizations, and the problem is that we don't have any kind of people willing to enforce these. And because of the fact that this goes high up in intelligence agencies and governments, and so many people are compromised, apparently this desire for pedophilia, which is under 13-year-old children, mostly boys, by the way, is pandemic. And it pays well, and you get a benefit from it, because not only does somebody pay you a lot of money for these sick outlets, but you now have them compromised. You've got something on them. You own them. Well, now you wonder why the intelligence agencies are so much into these things. Everybody in this planet is under some sort of blackmail, so to speak, against them. And that's how they're mostly controlled. And of course, you follow that up with, of course, money. As the old saying goes, you either take the silver or we give you the lead. So what are you supposed to do, especially when there's nobody to go out there and protect you? So that's why crime is rampant. And you got to remember, crime isn't just selling drugs or all the other things involved. And it's not just so many street-level crimes. These things go into everything. People are getting into the most vilest things, and they're going to go where the money is. And what happens is that when you have no law enforcement, even if you're a large corporation, the gangs run you. They go into your stores, they take them over, they're working with them, they demand payments. This happens to all the major companies, Walmart, Costco, etc. This was documented. They were paying people, paying off all the gangs, particularly this was talked about in Mexico. But if you think it's only in Mexico, well, I think it's kind of naive there. I allege that it's all over the world, you've got billions of dollars. Don't you think you're going to pay back that? Don't you think you're going to be affected? Or they're going to do things. Your trucks are going to get ambushed or break down, or all sorts of things will happen. They'll go in and cause problems with your employees. This is notorious for any large corporation, and it happens internationally. So we have to understand all this is the kind of sewer we're living in, and nobody really cares. The very cowardice religious movements do absolutely nothing. They're not on the streets helping poor people. They're not out there doing anything whatsoever. So they're taking care of their own little clique of people, and they're making sure that they are not really causing any problems. Plain and simple. It's really sad that people who claim that they want to live at a higher level aren't out there helping the population much more than they do. Now, religions do have their charities, do help people, and they, in some areas it's a fair amount, but it seems to be a very low amount because they're not really solving any problems, and they're not really affecting legislation. They're not making sure that things are done properly. You know, in societies where the government takes care of the poor and everyone else, churches and religion is non-existent. So, in the United States, religion is depended upon to do so many things that they have made themselves important because somebody's got to do that charity work. But usually that money comes from the government, by the way. So they're not getting it from donations. So it's a sad, sad situation, but the amount of this pedophilia going on, which is pandemic, and the amount of people that disappear, and the fact that if you're not 18, you don't exist, the people who are runaways because of their horrible, abusive families, and everything that goes on there has brought the world hundreds of millions of people who have no place to go, and they are then forced into lifestyles, abducted, and who cares? Who's gonna care about this runaway? Who's gonna care about it? Nobody's gonna care about it. Nobody gives at all a damn about any of these people. They are society's throwaways. We can see that with the 20 million people living on the street in the United States. 33% of the American children do live in poverty. Does anybody get that? While we give $40 billion to the Nazi empire of the Ukraine. So, unbelievable. So, This is what happens, and it's just going worse and worse, and there's no one out there that gives a damn. Of the vote for the money for the Ukraine, 8 people voted against it. Each one of them were Republicans. Every single crybaby Democrat didn't filter that money in any way to local needed situations. Medical and housing and everything is at a horrible level, and people are being pushed into greater and greater corruption. And I guess that's what they want. And there's going to be these 2 classes, something out of Soil and Green, where the rich live in protected condos and everybody else is machine gunned. So the reality is there, and these kind of books just point this up even further. So the Franklin Scandal you can get at Kindle on a PDF by Nick Bryant. And as I said, it's a really wake-up book, and I do believe that most of the information in here is real. We do have to be careful, as I said, when you get into details. I always find people making wrong statements. They're taking what they believe and making it sound better by making things sound that it's even worse than it is. They're misstating things, it's incorrect information, and they don't seem to understand the bigger picture there. And, of course, this slants stuff to make it even worse. Now, I don't think we have to do that. Get your facts right. And also, let's get some proof on something. Somebody saying something or accusing somebody else of something is an old, long story. It's been done by governments and armies and everything else. Attila Hun went around and told everybody, he would send people ahead and say, they butchered that town, and they would get these horrible stories. And then when he arrived at that town, the town would surrender. So the whole idea is that this is the kind of psyops, you could say, that is going on all the time. And there's lots of very, I'm not sure what to say. I think some of these people think it is real. There's a lot of very mentally ill people that have legitimate problems and may even have legitimate stories to tell to a certain degree. But then it comes up to the fact that all this happened to me and I didn't know it for all my life. Until this came up at him. Now, you suppress things psychologically for a period of time. Now, I'm not a big in favor of suppressed memories, but of course, this must be a valid understanding for you personally. But it's like a dream. Dreams can be very potent, but you're going to have to sift through all the weird stuff, the flying pink elephants, all the other things that you see in a dream. It's a big mishmash of nonsense. Can you pick out the valuable information? Well, good luck. And it's the same thing with these other people who have been horribly traumatized, apparently. And you never can find too many people that can verify their story. They talk about people who are dead. I was traumatized. My parents who died 20. Yeah, okay. Here we go again. So there's no way to verify things. And most people that when are questioned on this, I guess you couldn't expect them to admit that they did abuse somebody. But the bottom line is we just don't know. And to come out from left field and say this person, I was sold to this person. Is certainly, I sympathize with these people, the trauma they're going through, but is it real? And it never seems to be Joe Blow down the street. It's always some celebrity or somebody else. And, I guess these things could be investigated. Where was that celebrity in 1979? What was he doing? Was he in the same place that this person was? Can we verify that? So, there's ways we could track this if somebody wanted to do it, but there's never that kind of information. And while it is sad and it's difficult to prove things like this and maybe allowing people to get away with things, but on the other hand, these people are being accused of horrible things. And I have recently found this out with the Bob Saget situation. Now, the Bob Saget situation, they accused him of being a pedophile, which there's absolutely zero evidence. I can't even find one person who talked against him. All the children he worked with for many years, up to this day, including one of them who's a raving, born-again Christian girl, says he was the nicest guy they ever met. Nothing inappropriate ever happened. So the whole idea is that this is the kind of things that happen. Yet there are people, particularly on YouTube, who spent hours saying what a scumbucket this guy was. based in nothing, absolutely nothing, on a Christian rant saying he never did anything for God. How do you know what he did? Were you up his bottom? You probably wish you were. But the point is that that's very typical of these. So, I mean, condemning somebody with absolutely no proof based only on the fact that Bob Saget apparently, and I never heard his show, was a dirty mouth comic. Yeah, like Sam Kinison, Andrew Dice Clay, all of them did it. So even one of my favorite, Carlin, of course, he used the 7 words you can't use. Wasn't that filthy? I'm sure there were sexual things he talked as well. But the point is that he was known for that, or he was targeted for that. You know, what is all that stuff? So the whole idea is people come out and say, well, everybody knows he's a pedophile. Well, that's the common gossip that destroys people's lives, and quite a horrible thing to accuse someone of. So certainly we should be aware of these things when they go on, but we certainly, if we keep hunting down the innocent, which is part of the plan, by the way, the guilty go scot-free and laugh at you. Oh yeah, look over there, it's that guy. Well, they pick your pocket and laugh at you as they run, and we have to be careful of that. So getting back to this book in general, this is a great book detailing the kind of intrinsic international gang of criminals, which are a mixture of your street thugs up to your federal law enforcement and political officials around the world, by the way, is quite an eye-opener, and I consider this book to have good a good level of truth in it. How much of this is not true, how much it is really hard to say. They all tend to, you got to be very careful when they all tend to fall into the same reality again. And Michael Aquino and the Process Church. Well, there's still nothing on these people, and I don't want to give them a clean bill of health, but come on, let's get some proof here. And it's not allegations which Michael Aquino had against him by a minister who was going to gain $3 million, approximately at that time would be almost $10 million, a lawsuit against him and his wife based on very little information. So it was a witch hunt, and it's very hard from the testimonies of basically what was a 2- and 3-year-old at the time. Well, I don't have much faith in what children say in general. We keep them in a fantasy world, a talking mouse world, a cartoon reality. I'm not sure children have any known realities. That's really unfortunate because this allows them to be so warped and misunderstand things. But you got to remember that there always seems to be a dollar value here. So this person wanted lots of money, millions of dollars. And he was, of course, a minister who wanted to get the big bad Satanist. Now, I have no love for Satanism in one way or another, or for Michael Aquino per se. He's a weird dude, which I haven't really figured out yet. But the bottom line is that I'm not going to hunt down the freaky innocents while the guilty continue to do what they want. And this is the problem with false claims. Let's get the culprits. Let's not point to this guy because it makes you feel special. And every person who's involved in any kind of pedophilia generally makes their position appear right, correct, and honest because they name people who are in the headlines as being involved in these. So if you want credibility, well, you better use names like Michael Aquino because that's going to get you. Oh, yeah, I heard about that. That's that Satanist guy. Yeah, he must be involved in this. Well, I don't know what he was involved. We just don't know, but there certainly is not enough evidence to do anything about it. And if there was and is, and law enforcement has not worked on that, then we have a bigger problem than Michael Aquino, a pawn in a giant chessboard of much more empowered people. We have a real problem that things are not being enforced. So this is a great book. People that don't know about this whole area, I think this is a good introduction into it, showing you how deep the corruption goes and how it affects everybody and who's involved with it and the kind of things that are going on with this. Because, once you are taken off the leash of civility, people fall to their lowest common demonic level. We see this, of course, with Blackwater people. These are all Blackwater people. Pretty much 99% of them were ex-special forces or military people. And the minute they didn't have to follow military law, they did atrocities like you wouldn't believe, including the famous rape rallies where they raped children, talk about pedophiles, to old women because it was just fun and they could get away with it in foreign countries and they were living under no law. That's the problem when you hire mercenaries. But the problem here is that these are all highly trained from the U.S. military, and that should talk about the kind of level of morality, civility, and honor and country nonsense that, well, of course, I'd never really heard a professional military guy ever say that. That's just all nonsense. Nobody believes in any of that. So the whole idea is that we need to watch these things. This is a spooky reality, and I think everybody should be aware of this. And if you're a person with young children and everything else, I think you should read a book like this. You should be, or children in general, you should be aware of what's going on out there and be a little more careful and a little more observatory. Is that a word? You should have better observations of what's happening, because these things happen, and this happened in Omaha, Nebraska. Everybody likes to say, oh, it's Hollywood. They got all them pedophiles over there. Some pedophiles, all them Hollywood types. Well, the biggest satanic groups and the biggest pedophile organizations were basically, which has been documented for 100 years, has basically been New York. Now, here we have in the Midwest. The point is I don't believe it is anywhere town-based. Anytime you find money and power, you're going to find these perversions. So certainly Hollywood doesn't have any way, is this a monopoly on being deviants? Certainly I've heard a lot of stories there, but the stories are just the same out of Yonkers, New York, the Bronx, and everywhere else where these major gangs of pedophiles operate without any problems. So these are all part and parcel of a bigger toxic system of corruption that we need to end. And the corruption and all of this ends. It's pretty simple. But nobody wants to take simple solutions because they don't want to live in the regular world. They want to live in a world of special privileges and really just pockets stuffed with money. And that's what all these people have, and all the people that touch them. They're all being paid off at the expense of human beings who are being tortured at the highest level of torture. So be aware of these things and don't trust anybody. Don't leave your children with people. And watch what they're doing. And that includes even relatives. Can you trust anybody? Well, not really. Your relatives are part of the same reality that these people are on, and most of the time they'd look the other way or take the money. So the whole idea is be aware what's going on in your life. And this is important in general. This is bringing up your sensing capacities to find, in more positive areas, to find the best opportunities for you, to bring to you opportunities so you can be successful. These are all part of having higher developed senses and not being so naive in life. And most of the problems I look back in my life was because I was so naive, because I was living in the fact that, oh, people are basically good. Good for nothing. Good to be evil to the core. And it wasn't just everybody. It was throughout my entire family, which is nothing but a bunch of scumbuckets who talked the hippie talk, but screwed their family over and stole money from their mother and put her out on the street. But we got to take care of the poor people. Let's smoke the doobie. So the whole idea is that these are the kind of things you run into with these 60 channels of corruption that we are so affected by of today. So let's make sure we understand all that and make sure what all these things need. It's not this book, it's what it means. What is this nationwide and actually international child trafficking? It's not just children, people trafficking. We're hearing more and more stories of people who are kidnapped and used as sex slaves for years and years and abused to the heart. There are houses all over the United States, what they call rape houses, where people are brought in from foreign countries. I knew a scumbucket who actually went to these things. and pay to. And these are people that are blackmailed into doing this or owe money to the criminals. And this place was in Los Angeles, and it was filled with Oriental women. I'm not sure what country they were from in Asia, but that's it. Now, this is going on all the time. This is right under your nose. The people who you think you respect the most, your police, your firemen, your local judges, all these people know about these situations and take the money and look the other way. And it goes up to the feds as well. Now, this is a reality that nobody does anything about, but is not unknown, because if you're in the business of watching what's going on of the public in a law enforcement type way, you know everything that's going on. Plain and simple. If you think that they don't, and if you think that anything happens in this world that isn't planned, well, you just don't get it. That's the reality out there. So learn from these things, be aware, be understanding, know what other people are going about. This kind of out and out ultimate evil needs to be stopped if anything in this world is going to work. This goes hand in hand with the murdering of animals to eat them, the horrible treatment of prisoners, and the list goes on of things. Now, I don't know who said it, but you can judge a society by, I didn't say it, you can judge a society, I'm repeating it, by how they treat their animals and their prisoners. And I think that is very, very true. And as long as we still have slaughterhouses, we're going to have battlefields. I think that's very, very true. Now, those are things to contemplate about and to see what you can do about it. Everybody can make a difference, even on a small level. You vote with your pocketbook. Support those people who are trying to do something and have shown they're doing something. Not the corrupt people, not the people that wave the flag of religions or nonprofit institutions who are doing what? Trillions of dollars into the Cancer Society? And what has that ever gotten us? The Heart Society? Come on. What have they ever done? Trillions, and nothing has come from it. So wake up, and those are the other things. These organizations also pay their directors millions of dollars. The Red Cross has, I don't know how many directors that are making over $500,000 a year to help the poor people. Well, I think we can help the poor people by cutting your salaries in half, first of all. So you should be working for a higher cause, and part of that is not the fact that you work for bad wages or minimum wages, but you don't need to be the top 10% of the country. So these are the kind of things that you can change by not supporting them. If people demanded from the Red Cross and didn't give to them money saying, we're sick of you paying your people, I believe the head of the Red Cross is making close to $1 million a year now. I'm not 100% sure of that. And they have a $2 million, which I believe goes back in their pocket, travel expenses. What? Even if you're traveling all the time, that's an awful lot of money. So something is going on there, and you're paying for that. And people on the street ain't getting the benefits. So all of that that is out there is something that we need to look at carefully. And you need to, ultimately things are, how can you help your life? How can you empower yourself? Well, if your child is involved with this or has to go through this and be traumatized, even on a small level, this is going to have a horrible effect on your children and, of course, on you, and could cost you a lot of money and could scar people forever. So be aware, be informed, question all authority, and vote with your pocketbook. Support the good. Trample on the evil. It ain't complicated. It's all there. But the easiest things to do are generally the things that are never done. Until next time.